Hello, and welcome to Recovery Arkansas and Beyond with your host, Jay Cupid. Today's special guest is Trent Teague, the campus director of the Other Side Ministry, where they are living in God's amazing grace.
Welcome to Recovery Arkansas and Beyond, and being that I blow every intro that we've ever done, I get a chance to gig Steve just a little bit because the camera kicked off and he didn't catch that, and we did about 30 minutes worth of this. Now we're going to have to redo it, but hey, Steve, love you, buddy.
Oh,
We've got a really special guest with us today. It's Trent Teague. He's with the Other Side Ministry. He's the director out here. And he's not just a director, and he's my friend. And so it's good to have you here. Good morning, Trent.
Good morning, Jay.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad for you to be here. We've been talking about this for a while, you know.
Yeah,
Now we finally got you here.
Yes, sir.
And you know, this is one of those things. It's you know, you think about it and you can overthink it and all these questions that you have in your mind, but you know, it's just conversation.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm excited to be having a conversation this morning.
So tell me a little bit about where you're from.
Well, I grew up in a little community of about 900 in Texas, named Chico, Texas.
Right.
I've been married 3 times. I'm on my 3rd wife now, and her name is Jennifer. And
I'm glad you remembered her name. You know, some of us talk about their wives and don't mention their name.
Yeah, I understand that you forgot to mention Valerie's name. So.
I did.
But anyway, born and raised in Texas. You know, I always knew that the Lord had something different for me than what I had been living.
Yep.
Wasn't ever real sure what that was. You know, I was always really popular in high school, really popular through school. I was an athlete. I was a jock, if you want to call it a jock. Always had eyes on me in the community. And I think, well, I married my high school sweetheart.
Right.
And we had a child at a pretty young age. I was 18 when Lainey was born, my oldest daughter. And she was my life.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, my sweetheart and I, high school sweetheart and I got married. About 5 years into that, let me back up just a minute. When Lainey was born, she became my life. Everything that my life consisted of, Lainey was involved in it. Right. I mean, I had her strapped in a car seat on the front of the boat, taking her fishing when she was just months old. It was just one of those things.
Did she catch anything? That's the question.
No, people always ask me, "You're not going to use her for bait, are you?" I was like, no, I'm not going to do that right now. But anyway, so into that, I was married about 5 years. When Lainey was 5 years old, we separated and divorced, and that stripped my life away from me.
Right.
And that really was when my first tailspin had started. I mean, I drank a little bit in high school,
right.
Smoked a little marijuana in high school because I thought it was the cool thing to do.
Right.
You know, my mom and dad were great parents.
Right.
They were awesome parents. My dad was an addict, an alcoholic.
Right.
And he's been clean and sober for, I wouldn't even know, 30, 35 years now. So.
Right.
He showed me what not to do, but he also got clean and showed me what I needed to do in that. Mom was always there for me.
They always say it's not so much how you start, it's how you finish.
It's how you finish. That's right. That's right. It's all about. I always say slow and steady wins the race.
That's right.
So.
How old were you when you got divorced?
Let's see. We got married when I was 18. We was married for 24 years old, or somewhere right in there.
Okay.
And in that divorce, when Lainey was stripped out of my life like that, I just went into a tailspin. I'll tell you what happened is I hated women.
Okay.
For a long time.
Okay.
And I wanted to inflict pain on every woman that I came across. I wanted them to feel what I was feeling.
Right.
Of course, in turn, that didn't do anything but bring me more pain because now I've got illegitimate children, if that's what you want to call it out there.
Right.
You know, sowing my seed.
Right. Right.
You know, and my life was just a mess.
Yeah.
It was just a mess. And so after that, I guess 5 years, like I said, 5 years divorced, Lainey stripped out of my life, and then we just kind of, my life just kind of went south from there. I actually came to Floral, Arkansas in 2001, somewhere in there. My sisters lived up here for 30-something years,
Right.
right at 30 years, I guess. And I came up here in 2000, going to get off drugs, and come up here and realized that the drugs were more prominent up here, and you didn't have to buy them up here.
Right.
That was the thing about it. People just walk up to you and say, "Here, try this," or "Here, try that." Of course, back then, Florida, Arkansas, the police didn't want anything to do with them crazies up there.
Right. Right.
So there was a lot of outlaw people up in that area back then, and they were that's when they was cooking their own dope.
Right.
A
lot of meth labs.
A lot of meth labs up in that area, up in them hills, up in there, and they'd just come by and offer it to you. Say, here you go. Right. So I did that. I was here I think I stayed about 6 months.
Right.
And I was worse on drugs when I left here than I was when I got here.
Right.
I called my dad on his birthday, matter of fact, in March of 2001, I guess it was, and told him, said, "Dad, you got to come get me. This is not what I needed to do."
Right.
And he showed up here and took me back home. Well, I had gotten a DWI in 1999.
Okay.
And they gave me 2 years probation for that.
Right.
And I reported one time.
Oh, wow.
And I went on what I guess absconding.
Right.
And so anyway, when I went back to Texas from Arkansas in 2001, I went to work for a little landscape business, kind of just a under the table type deal.
Right.
And I got pulled over on the interstate in an old farm truck. And I was honest with the police officer. I just told him, I said, "Look, I'm sure there's a warrant out there for my arrest. I don't have no driver's license, but, just laid it all out there for him." And so he went back and run my name, and I'll never forget this. He come up to me and he said, "Well, I got good news and I got bad news." I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, the good news is your driver's license didn't come back suspended." He said, "The bad news is you were right. You're wanted out of Wise County, Texas." I said, "Yep, I figured that." So anyway, I went to spend a night or two in jail, and when I got out, I called my probation officer. First time I spoke to him in 2 years.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, well, it's nice to hear from you, Mr. Teague." So anyway, he said, "Well, what I need you to do is you need to come see me." And at this point in time, I was like 1 week from the time I was supposed to be getting off probation.
Right.
The thing about it is even though I wasn't reporting to him, I sent him money every month.
Right.
I sent I sent my
Stayed
fees.
up on your fees.
I sent my fees in and paid my fines.
Yeah.
I did that every month, and I had worked long enough that I had about $2,000 saved up.
Right.
Because my intentions was I was going to save up this money. I was going to go turn myself into him and say, "Look, here I am. I've got the money to pay you off.
Right.
But here I am. I know there's a warrant out there for my that was my full intentions. It just God didn't see it for it to work that way.
Right.
God had a different plan in it all. So I see that now. I didn't see that then, but I see that now. But so I went and I went and seen him when he requested me to come see him. I went and seen him.
Right.
And I just walked in his office, with my head up, my chest out, and said, "Well, here I am." I said, "You asked me to come see you?" And he said, "Yeah." Right. He said, "How are you on your community service hours?" And I said, "Well, I never did do any community service hours." He said, "Well, you go do me 80 hours worth of community service. You finish paying off your fees, since we're so close to you being finished here, and I see that you're trying to do something. You have changed your life now."
Right.
He said, "And we'll call it good."
Right.
And I was like, "That's
a blessing, man."
A blessing. I was expecting to go to jail and spend some time in jail, and
Right.
I'm not built for jail.
Right.
I mean, I'm just not. There's been so many opportunities in my life for me to have to go to jail that the Lord just didn't see fit for me to go, and I praise Him for that daily because I just wasn't built for that.
Right.
I tell these guys out here at the other side all the time, I was like, "Look, it's not that I didn't deserve to go to jail.
Right.
I just never got caught.
Right.
Whereas you guys just got caught.
Yeah.
I did everything that you guys are doing,
Right.
but it just never got caught with it. I was always seen to be one step ahead of that.
Right.
There's so many times that I'd left places that within hours,
Right.
the police had kicked the doors in.
Man.
And I got accused of being a snitch a lot, but I never told on anybody.
Right.
That just wasn't in my MO. It just wasn't me.
Right.
But there's several. It's funny how once you bring your life to the Lord,
Yes.
and you start building that relationship with the Lord,
Yeah.
how you can look back and evaluate your life, and you see places throughout your life where He was,
Yeah.
and you didn't even realize it was Him. It was just coincidence.
And he draws you to places or draws you away from places.
He draws you away from places. That's right. I tell this story when I'm sharing my testimony, or I share this with the guys a lot, is how many times have we been sitting in a place that we shouldn't have been, whether it be a dope house or whatever it might be.
Right.
And you're sitting there and you've got this eerie feeling. You know something's fixing to happen, something's just not right.
Yep.
And somebody walks through the door and asks you to go to the store.
Yep.
You know, you've sat over there and you've actually prayed, and whether you realize you're praying or not, you've asked, man, if I could just get out of here.
Yep.
If it was just a way to get me out of here.
Yep.
And within minutes, somebody will walk through the door and ask you to go to the store or ask you, hey, you want to ride with me to wherever,
Right.
you know. That's not a coincidence.
No.
I look back on my life now and see that those are not coincidences. Those
Right.
are, the Lord delivered you exactly what you asked.
Yes.
Is a way out.
That's right. And it says it in the Bible. It says there's scripture that says,
Absolutely.
He's not going to put more on you than you can endure, and then He'll also provide an escape for you.
That's right. For every temptation that's laid out in front of you, He shows a way out.
Right.
So,
And I wish I could tell you that word for word, but I just
Right, I can't.
paraphrased it. But
Yeah, me too. I can't do the word for word thing. And, so moving on into that, after I went home from up here, got all that squared away, I met a woman. She was really young, and fell in love again. Got married.
Right.
Had two beautiful girls, Tiana and Kalisha. Out of that, I did have a girl between those times with Addie. She's I won't call her my oldest middle daughter.
Right.
I've got 4 girls, and there was I also had a son.
Yeah.
That was born during my shenanigans.
Right.
At that time in my life, also
Right.
didn't meet him till 2 years ago when Laney got shot, and I had to go to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And
I
praise the
want
Lord
to
for
ask
that.
you about that in a little bit too. Yeah.
Praise the
talk
Lord
more
for
about
that. But anyway, I finally got to meet him for the first time and sit and visit with him. And it went okay. It went the way I was expecting it to go. And I mean, he made it real clear that he didn't need a father in his life. He had a father in his life.
Right.
You know, I hadn't been there for 22 years. Why would he need me now as far as being a father? You
Right.
know? And so we just sat and we had a good conversation, and we worked things out, and this is just the way it's going to be. If the Lord wants us to have a relationship, then the Lord's going to give us a relationship. If not, then so be it. That's just, he's a grown man. He's going to move on with his life. And it took me a minute to come to terms with that, come to peace with that, because I beat myself up for not being a daddy to him.
Right.
But, the life I was living, there was no child deserved what I was going to drag
be
them.
Drugged through that.
What I was going to drag them through. And I look back, and that's another situation that I see God in there is, the Lord gave him a daddy. The Lord, because I was running with the devil, I guess if that's what you want to call it, and but he was taken care of.
You bet.
The Lord appointed somebody to take care of him.
Yes, sir.
And he was a really good father to him. So,
You bet.
and we've spoken twice since then, so the Lord's kind of, but it is what it is,
Well, I'm just glad he was curious enough to seek you.
He was, and I give, if you can look at any good that come out of the situation of Laney being shot, that was probably the Lord made it an opportunity for him and I to sit down and visit and talk.
Right.
So.
You bet.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about. We know you were in your addiction, and we know that it was a mess.
It was a mess.
But tell me how you ended up back here. I know it had something to do with floral again, but
Well, so I got clean, and I was clean for almost 11 years.
right.
Yeah, almost 11 years, and maybe 13 years. Anyway, I got clean for a stint, and I went to work in the oil field, which that's what I've done most of my entire adult life until I came up here. But I had a really good job, and some things just started falling apart again in my life.
Right.
And I just turned to what I always knew. Whenever I felt that pain, I just turned. And me and a friend of mine went to this guy's house, and wasn't really seeking to find any methamphetamine.
Right.
But it just happened to be there.
Right.
And I was just at a stage in my head where I was like, you know what? Yeah, give me a hit off of that.
Right.
And as soon as I put that pipe to my mouth, I knew exactly what I had done.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly where my life was fixing to go.
Yeah.
But I had no way of controlling that.
Right.
I mean, I could have, I chose not to.
Right.
Is what it is. So, how I ended up in Arkansas was I mentioned a while ago, my sisters had lived up here for I don't know how many years. I fell back off of my addiction pretty heavy. But in that time, I met Jennifer, my wife now.
Right.
And she was clean. She was doing good whenever we met. And I just, I just laid it all out there. I said, look, I've been dabbling a little bit back in the methamphetamines. This is what I'm doing. And she said, I lived in San Angelo, Texas at that time, and she lived in Newcastle, Texas, which was her little hometown.
Right.
And it was about 4 hours apart. And she said, you do what you do down there, but when you come see me, you just don't bring it up here to me.
Right. Right.
You know, and the devil used that.
Yeah.
Because what had happened is about a year after her and I met, I got laid off from a really good job, and moved in with her.
Right.
Well, next thing you know, here we are. I brought it to her.
Right.
And she dove off in it with me, and then we our relationship was really good up until that point.
Right.
And it went really bad after that. Yeah. I'm really fortunate that she's even still with me, to be honest. And we did things to each other. It wasn't just a one-way street. Yeah. Anybody that's ever suffered with that addiction knows how that goes when it comes to relationships. So,
and that's the guilt thing that you carry too, is that not only were you in your mess, but you pulled her into your mess, and that that's the one that we see out here as much as anything that the guys really struggle with is that, the wake of destruction that they put behind them, and all the people that were involved in it. And it's hard for them to forgive themselves for that.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And, that's it. Forgiveness of any kind is hard.
Right.
Especially self-forgiveness.
Yeah, self-forgiveness is the hardest.
It's almost easier to forgive somebody else for something they've done to you than it is for you to forgive yourself for what you've done to people. And
that's right.
Like you said, that wake of destruction that you've left behind you that hurts so many people.
Yeah.
You know. But anyway, so, we've been together 4 years, I guess, going on 5 years, and the 3 of that was hell.
Right.
When that addiction set in, it was hell. And we were on and off and on and off and on and off. And on September the 16th in 2018, let me back up a minute. My sister had called me months before I come up here. Right. Maybe even a year before I came up here.
I remember she used to come out here to chapel on Saturdays.
Yeah, she did. So she called me one day, and she at this point she had gotten her life together.
Right.
And that was just a godsend in itself, because she was a hellion. My sister was a hellion.
Right.
And she'll tell you she was a hellion.
Right.
So I'm not telling y'all anything that she wouldn't tell you. Yeah. So but she'd gotten her life together. She had to go do a little stint in prison. Right. And when she come out of prison, she'd gotten her life together. She stayed good. And she called one day and she said, Bubba, she said, I really want you to come up here and get some help. Yeah. She said, there's a place not too far from my house that a ex-cop has opened. Right. And she's something about Dr. Pillow. She mentioned Dr. Pillow's name too, but she thought you was the one that had the child that had died of an overdose. Right. And that's why this came to fruition. Gotcha. Anyway, she called. She kind of explained the place to me a little bit, and I told her, I said, sister, I'm not ready for that. Right. I'm not. It's not for me right now. Right. I'm not done. Right. That basically is what I told her.
Ain't through.
I didn't tell her that like specifically I'm not done, but by the excuses that I made up, I told her that I wasn't done. Sure. So fast forward just a little bit, I found myself, I used to say that I was homeless. Right. Before I came up here, but I was sleeping in my car, but it's because I was choosing to sleep in my car. I wasn't homeless. I had places to go. I just didn't want to go there. Yeah. My mom was always on my side no matter what I was doing. Right. Now, she would show that tough love. My mama would show that tough love, and I love her to pieces for that now. Yeah. Couldn't understand it then, really, because, when we're in that frame of mind, you feel like the world's beating you down enough. Why do you want your family to beat you down, too? But it's just that one of those things that my mom was not that enabling mama.
And I've always said tough love, the phrase tough love is not how tough it is on the kid, it's how tough it is on the parent, because they really want to do for their kids, and they, but they know it's not the right thing. You know?
So my mom and dad, they were they leveled each other out.
Right.
My dad's a real soft-hearted man, and
Right.
if I was in trouble, he would want to run to my rescue.
Yeah.
Mom would be like, "No, you just let that boy do what that boy's fixing to have to go through.
Let him hurt a little bit.
Yeah. And anyway, so I woke up in my car behind a dumpster in Graham, Texas, at the McDonald's.
Right.
And when I woke up and I looked around, and I was like, there's got to be a better life than this.
Right.
And I reached out to my sister at that point. And I think that was in, that would have been probably end of July, maybe the 1st August 2018.
Yeah. Where was Jennifer at in your life at this time?
We were together, but we weren't together. We were speaking, not speaking. It's just, look, it's just that addict stuff, I mean, when we were both high, we were really good, but when we were coming down, we were really bad.
Yeah.
And it was a toxic, lethal combination.
Right.
So it just wasn't. It was rocky, very shaky.
Right.
But when I woke up that morning, and I just looked, like I said, I looked around and I told myself, there's got to be a better life than this.
Yes. Yes.
I reached out to my sister.
Right.
I said, "Sister, I think I'm ready to do something different."
Right.
And my next phone call was to Jennifer.
Right.
And I said, "Look, I've got to do something. I've got to do something different." And
Right.
So let me back up a little bit, and something that it's probably really crucial that I've not spoken about yet is, so Jennifer and I are in the middle of our mess.
Right.
And we'd actually relocated to a different town. So Jennifer has 2 daughters.
Right.
And a son,
Right.
Brandon, Brandy, and Morgan.
Right.
So Morgan had been a sick child nearly all of her life.
Right.
And shortly after we moved, I was working at a deer processing plant, and I was at work one morning, and I got a call from Jennifer. She was hysterical. And she said, "I went home because Aunt Morgan wanted to answer in the phone."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "I just felt like something wasn't right."
Right.
So, sorry if I get a little bit emotional.
That's
here,
okay.
But
It's okay.
so she went home and found Morgan unresponsive on the couch.
Right.
Well, she rushed her to the ER in Jacksboro, Texas. And, of course, the immediate thing they think is this young teenager.
Right.
They had when they got the call from Morgan,
Right.
they had just left a call from a young boy that had overdosed.
Right. So that's their assumption.
So they had just assumed that, we got another overdose.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward, she gets shipped to Cook's. Come to find out, she's got a very rare gene. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's the abbreviation is called ANE. It's acute necrotizing encephalomyelitis or something like that. Very rare.
Right.
When they found this in Morgan at this point, that there was only like 150 known cases of this in the world.
Wow.
I think something along those lines.
Right.
So they didn't even know how to treat it.
Right.
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 So they get on the phone with doctors in Japan, Australia, trying to figure out how to treat Morgan on this. Well, so they call us. So she's in a coma because of the flu. Because they diagnosed her with the flu, and so this gene that she has, that's instead of attacking the virus itself, it attacked her brainstem, and stuff like that. It attacked her body, her nervous system.
Right.
Put her in a coma. So she was in a coma for about 6 months. Not expected to come home. Not expected to ever be able to come home. And if she did come home, that she would be a vegetable.
Right.
Well, what they didn't know was our Lord.
We got this guy named Jesus.
This guy named Jesus. And even in our mess, and so that was a really tough, trying time for Jennifer and I.
Right.
And Jennifer had been at the hospital 24 hours a day for months. So that really put a strain on our relationship. I would go up there and visit every once in a while. But so that just set me really running even more amok. And she was suffering. She was in her addiction too the whole time she was up there.
Right.
But even in that, the faith that I seen Jennifer have in our Lord.
Right.
They was calling her in for meetings that no parent should ever have to come to, and she was going in there with a smile on her face and telling them, "My Lord's done told me different.
Right.
We're not even going to have this meeting because the Lord's done told me that my child is going to be okay."
Yeah.
And 6 months later, she's walking out of the hospital, getting in a limousine and driving home.
Walking.
Yeah, walking out. And so, Morgan, when she got sick, it changed completely everything about her.
Right.
It changed everything that under her eye color.
Right.
I said, and she just wanted to be somewhere where she was loved for who she is, who she was.
Right.
The new her, not the old her.
Right.
And somewhere pretty.
Yes.
And we always talked about going to Colorado.
Right. Right.
Because she loved to go to Colorado. She loved the state of Colorado. Anyway, so when I came up here and went through the program, I got here October 2018. Went through the program and when I first got here, I was, it was just like everybody else that comes in here, shell shocked.
Right.
Culture change.
Yep.
Not really sure that change is what I really want.
Right.
Because change is scary.
Change is scary.
Change is scary, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day. They were talking about how somebody was just really grumpy and crabby, and one of the residents here was just being really grumpy and crabby and not wanting to be here. And I looked at him, I said, does anybody really want to be here?
Yeah. And this is.
I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to be here.
Right.
You would much rather be doing something else than have to be right here where you're at today.
Right.
But due to the life that we constructed,
right,
this is the best place for us to be.
Yes.
So it's okay to be grumpy every once in a while.
It is.
So when I came in October the 6th, it was October 6th, 2018. It took me 3 weeks to get in.
Right. Yeah.
I came to the first week. I came up for an interview, and I always say that I interviewed y'all. Y'all didn't interview me because I had been informed that y'all were going to do all this stuff for me, and and that's just not quite the way it was going to be. But Nick Conley, one of the graduates here, he comes out and does the worship with us on Saturday mornings. He was in on that interview, and he told me, he said, Trent, when you left that interview, I told these guys, I said, we won't ever see him again. So anyway, they asked me to come back the next week, and I come back the next week, and they said, well, we gave your bed away. That's when Dylan Amaro and Jason Smith came in from Florida during the week.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. So they said, come back next week.
So do you think it was important for you to be turned away the first couple of times?
I think it was really important. Actually, I back up. It took me 4 weeks because the third time I was supposed to come, the third week I was supposed to be here, my sister's car broke down.
Oh, okay.
So I scrambled around, and I didn't have any phone numbers for anybody except for John Brock.
Right. Oh my gosh.
John Brock was. So I reached out to John. I said, John, I know you're going to go to chapel. I said, I need let them know that I'm not going to be able to be there this Saturday. But I'm not running off.
Right.
I still need my spot. I want my spot.
Yeah.
And so the first time I walked through these doors up here, back up on that, the peace that was in this place.
Yes.
I walk in the chapel and Nick Conley's up there playing music, and Eric Peckham and Randy Swan. And
yes.
You can just feel the peace and the love that's here.
Yes.
And I love when you tell the story about Valerie wanting to come out.
Yeah.
And when you went home one day, and she's like, I just want to go to the other side. And anyway, so you ask her why, and she said, because I feel closer to the Lord out there. And you said, well, you ought to be. They've only asked you to show up out there about 50 times today.
They've invited him out there 50 times.
About 50 times today. So, and you could tell that. I mean, as soon as you step on this property, you can feel that, the peace and the love.
The guys painted that speed bump out there where you come in the driveway, and they wrote spirit bump across there because they said once you get over that spirit bump, you start feeling the spirit. So
I knew then that this was the place for me.
Right.
Even though it took 3 more weeks after that to get a bed.
Right.
But on October 6th, finally came in.
Yeah.
And that was in 2018. Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, the first 2 months I was here, I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
Not really sure that this is even what I wanted in my life.
Right.
But I did rededicate my life back when I was younger. In my second marriage, I'd give my life to the Lord and did the baptism thing and all that, and went through the motions of being
Yeah.
a Christian
Yeah.
for a while.
Yep.
You know, I never really truly devoted my life to that,
Right.
but I did go through the motions of what everybody wanted to see in me.
Jump through those hoops.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
When I rededicated my life on October the 10th
Yeah.
at Mount Devonshire Baptist Church, Brother John
Brother
Cates,
John
actually
Cates.
C.W. Blood was there for revival.
Yeah. I remember that.
And I went up and rededicated my life that day. But even after that, I still wasn't real sure that's what I wanted to do. You know,
Right.
About 2 months in, I just told myself, look, if you're going to be here, just do this.
Right.
There's no sense in being here not digging in and getting involved.
Right.
You know, and from that point on, my life changed.
Well, I'm glad you did because it's kind of worked out.
It's kind of worked out, hasn't it? Yeah, yeah. It's amazing what God can do when you submit your life to Him.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you graduated, and I always use this story, and I want to make sure that I get it right.
Okay.
At the time you came up here, there weren't a lot of people in your family speaking to you and having anything to do with you. You know, and I believe everybody needs at least one person in their lives that will not give up on them. Not that they'll enable them, but they just won't
because
give
there's a
up
fine
on
line in there, you know, between that one person that's not going to give up on you and being that enabler. That's a fine line that we walk.
them. Right.
You know,
So when you graduated, how many people showed up and drove up here from Texas?
Oh, I don't know the number, but I know it was 3 pews full of people. All my daughters came up. My nieces, my nieces, maybe all 3 of my nieces. I don't remember if Rochelle came or not. You know, my mom, my dad, my sister.
And that's a God thing.
My brother-in-law.
That's a God thing, man, because
You know,
they saw that or heard that difference in you.
I had a family here, you know, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. I think I even sang Dale Way's "The Old Man Is Dead" for them when they were
and
here.
we kind of need to talk about that because you've quit singing on
Yeah,
us.
I'm not a singer, Jay. I'm not a singer. I sing really good in the shower or in the car.
So tell me a little bit about because I knew that you had a conversation with Jennifer about what was going to happen when you graduated.
About 3 months into the program, about 3 months in, I just called her. Of course, it was my phone call week. We'll go ahead and throw that out there.
Right.
Because I did get in trouble for using the phone when I was supposed to when I wasn't in here.
Yeah, I've heard. I've heard stories.
That
about
was the only thing I got in trouble for while I was here. As a matter of fact. So, anyway, about 3 months in, I reached out. I called Jennifer. I said, "Look, I don't know what the Lord has for you and I,
Right.
but there's what I do know. It's not there.
Yeah.
The Lord has spoken to me and impressed on me that I've got something here in Heber Springs, Arkansas. Don't know what it is.
Yeah. But so you've got something in Heber Springs. That's what.
But I've got something in Heber Springs, and I don't know if we got something in Heber Springs or if I've got something in Heber Springs. You know, like I said earlier, we'd come to peace with the fact that the Lord may not bring us. He may not reconcile our relationship,
Right.
but we'd come to peace with that.
Right.
About 5 months in, 4.5, 5 months in, I believe it was, the Lord spoke to me that I would have a position here of some sort. I would be involved, not necessarily a position, but I'd be involved here at the other side in some way.
Right.
And so Josh Beard was here at the time, and because I knew he kind of had the same impression from the Lord about how he got here.
Right.
And so I approached him. I said, "Hey, how did you approach Jay?" Because at that time, Jay, I don't think you and I had even spoken maybe 3 words.
We probably had spoken some, but not a lot.
You know, I didn't even really know who you were. I knew you were the founder and the president.
Yeah, because at the time I was still working for the county and doing this out here.
Yeah, Jeff Thomas was the director at that time.
Jeff Thomas was the director.
So anyway, I just asked Josh. I said, "How did you approach Jay with that?" And he said, "Well, you just got to go ask him. Just go tell him what the Lord's spoken to you about it. Just tell him."
Right.
I said, "All right." So I think I caught you down in the office one day, and I said, "Jay," I said, I know we don't really know each other, but here's what the Lord's impressed on me. And your words were, you pray about it, we'll pray about it, we'll see what happens.
Right.
And you probably thought, man, I hear that all the time.
I do. I hear that a lot. You know, guys get on fire and they want to do something.
So, so then upon graduation, I actually graduated in April 2019. And the best thing that ever happened for me was I have to go out and get a real job.
Yep.
You know, and I call it a real job because what we do is not a job.
Yeah,
it's a blessing, and it's a calling on our life, you know.
I can leave here at the end of the day, and I may be physically tired because I've been up and where I got up in the middle of the night, but it's not taxing on me. Yeah.
It actually wasn't the day I graduated. At that time, we were still allowed to leave the program and come back for graduation.
Right.
We was allowed to leave the program at our 6th month and then
Right.
come back for a graduation.
Right.
So when my 6th month mark hit, I look up and Jennifer's out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
With a U-Haul truck.
Yeah.
Full of our stuff from Texas.
Right.
She had done got us a house.
Right.
And of course I had a job lined up at Angie's.
Right.
And because I had planned on going to phase 2 if the Lord didn't work out for her and I, then I was just going to go to phase 2 and
Stephanie had told me about a week before this. She told me that, hey, Jennifer's going to be up here on graduation with a U-Haul or Penske or something.
Y'all did a really good job keeping that from me. So I didn't know that. But anyway, so another God thing, and I don't know who it was. It don't matter who it was, but Jennifer had some people that made that trip possible for her.
Yeah.
Financially.
Yes.
And like I said, I don't know who that was. I don't even need to know who it was, but whoever it was, thank you.
Yeah.
For making that possible.
Yeah.
Then I graduated the program and went to work at Angie's Hideaway.
Yep.
Did that for 8 months.
Right.
And about 4 months after I graduated, Josh Beard approached me and said, hey, you still think you'd be interested in coming on staff at the other side? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I've been trying to talk Jay into hiring you.
Right.
And I said, okay. I said, well, this is what it is. And once I left here, it's not that I forgot about it.
Right.
It just wasn't in the forefront of my mind.
Right.
I'd prayed about it, and I'd given it to the Lord, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen.
That's right.
So I wasn't that guy that's going to pick up the phone once a week. Hey. That just wasn't me.
Let God do what he does so
let
well.
God do what he's going to do. And then I guess about 8 months after I graduated, I got a phone call and said, hey, come out and talk to me.
Yep. I remember that.
And that was in January. That was actually in December of 19, I think it was. Somewhere in there.
Yep.
Because I started January 1st, 2020.
Right.
So,
You bet.
Yep. Started out as the missions coordinator.
Yeah.
Still the missions coordinator.
Did full circle.
Yeah. So.
Well, here, let's talk about a couple things.
Okay.
You've had some major things happen in your life, and the first one being Mo, when Maureen passed away.
That was 3 months after I graduated.
Right.
That was a very trying time.
Yeah.
Very, very trying time. Actually, let me back up to the day I graduated.
Okay.
Let me tell you a story about the day I graduated.
Okay.
So, like I said, Jennifer, the whole time I was in this program, I knew she was out there still in her mess.
Right. Right.
And, she showed up here with all her stuff in the Penske truck. Well, we went home and was unpacking the truck. She would lay down taking a nap because she drove all night to get here.
Right.
And I go out to the truck and come back in the house, and Morgan is standing in the kitchen with a dope pipe and a bag of dope in her hand, wanting to know what this is.
Yeah.
I just took it from her, and of course I went back, woke Jennifer up. I said, asked the stupid question.
Right.
What is this?
Right. Right.
She had a legitimate answer.
Yeah.
This helped me get here.
Yeah.
I said, all right. Well, the guys from the program and Josh Beard were supposed to be coming up about 5 o'clock to pray over and anoint my house.
Right.
So I called Josh Beard real fast. I said, look, I need you to come by here right now.
Right.
And he said, okay, I'll be there in a minute. Well, when he got there, I just handed it to him. And I said, I need you to get rid of this because we're done. This is not the life that we're going to live.
Right.
So the temptation of the enemy within 2 hours of me graduating was in my hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had a decision to make.
You did. You did.
And there was no hesitation on the decision I made of this is not what we're going to do.
Right.
I very easily could have put that pipe to my mouth, and where would we be right now?
Fired it up, yeah. Well, it wasn't part of your life anymore.
It wasn't part of my life anymore. And that it's real easy while you're in this program, and we put you in this, put these men in this bubble.
Yeah.
It's real easy to talk about how we're delivered.
Right.
But until you get out and you're truly tested, that's when you know you're delivered.
The rubber hits the road.
That's when you know that you're truly delivered from your addiction.
Right.
I'll take that to my grave, believing that 100%.
Absolutely.
It's a feeling.
It was confirmation as much as anything that hey, we are done with this.
Yeah.
This is not part of our life anymore, and we're through.
Yep.
And
that's right. So 3 months after graduation, in July 11th, matter of fact, July 11th, of 2019. After I graduated, I came out and I stayed plugged in out here.
Right.
I was out here as much as I could be.
Right.
If I wasn't out here, I was at church somewhere.
Yes.
And that's very key to these guys' success is
Finding that home church.
you've got to get plugged into a home church.
Stay plugged
You've got to
in,
get
yeah.
plugged into some kind of meetings.
Yes.
And you've got to stay plugged in. I'm a firm believer you got to stay plugged in to where you found the Lord.
Yes.
And I found the Lord here, or the Lord finds us. We're not lost.
Right.
Or he's not lost, we are.
Right.
He finds us. And it's very important that we stay plugged into that place where Jesus found us.
Yes.
I'll believe that 100%.
Yeah.
And so I stayed plugged in as much as I could. I worked a lot, but when I wasn't working, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, coming out here cooking breakfast 3 times a week.
Right. I remember that too.
Just because that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do.
That was your way of staying involved. Yeah.
And giving back to the guys. Giving back to this place.
Yeah.
So January 11th, 2019. Was a rough day for us.
Yes.
We had gotten up. Me and Morgan had gotten up, come out here. We cooked breakfast.
Right.
She loved coming out here because
Right.
she felt, I said earlier, she just wanted to go somewhere where people loved her for who she was.
Yes.
And she got that here.
Yeah, she felt it when she got
She
here,
fell
yeah.
in the first time that they came to Arkansas
Yeah.
to visit me when I was in the program. She
Right.
fell in love with this place.
Yeah.
And she fell in love with Arkansas.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is on their way up here, she's like, "Mom, I'm not going to Arkansas. I don't want to live in Arkansas. I'm not going to. That's not where I want to be. I said I want to be somewhere pretty." Well, she gets up here and she sees it, and then
See how
she
pretty
gets
it
here,
is. Yeah.
and the people just poured that love onto her.
Yeah.
And when they left here, she's like, "Mom, I can go to Arkansas."
She knew she was home, didn't she?
Yeah.
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 That's good.
So January 11th, let's go back to that. Morgan and I got up, come out here and cook breakfast that morning.
Right.
And another place I'd stayed plugged in is the Gospel Garage. Kevin Causey has the Gospel Garage here in town.
Yes.
And while I was in the program, my Thursdays, that's where I spent my Thursdays, was at the Gospel Garage.
Right.
They thought I was a mechanic. I'm not a mechanic. I might be a parts changer.
Part changer.
But I'm not a mechanic. So, when I wasn't serving in the kitchen, I took over the kitchen out here after I'd been here a couple of months. When, some situation that took place with the guy that was in the kitchen at the time, and
Right.
They found out I could cook.
Right. Yeah.
So
you got to be careful what you let people know you can do.
Yeah. So look. I'm just my 6 months that I spent at this place. I had some special privileges.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
And it all boiled down to, I'm assuming what the people seen in me.
Yeah. Well, it was a willingness to serve.
Yeah.
And not just be served.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And anyway, so
I remember going to your house that day.
yeah.
I'd gotten the call that Mo had passed, and man, it broke my heart. And I remember you and I stepped out in the driveway because I was concerned. I mean, because if there's ever a time to turn back to those things that give you that immediate peace, not long-term peace, but the short-term peace, I was just worried about you and Jennifer. And
and Jay, I knew I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
But I was concerned with Jennifer.
Right.
And I say that because as soon as so when we found her laying in the living room floor, Jennifer just went hysterical, obviously.
Right.
But her immediate reaction was she ran out the front door.
Right.
And she got out in the front yard and she hit her knees and she started screaming, "Why, God?
Yeah.
Why, God?"
Yeah.
And at that moment, I went and I wrapped her up and I said, "No, this is not the way we're going to do this.
No.
It's not why, God.
Right.
We're going to give God glory in this
Yes.
because there's a reason for this."
Yes.
So 2 weeks prior to her passing, she'd spent a little bit of time at the hospital.
Right.
At Children's in Little Rock.
Right.
And Jennifer had left to go get ice cream. Something. I don't remember exactly what she'd left for, but she left to go dollar store or somewhere for something. And gave Morgan and I a chance to talk a little bit.
Right.
And I just asked Morgan, just straight up asked her that. I said, so if you were to get sick again the way you were sick, would you want to suffer through that? Or would you just rather the Lord take you home? And her response was, "I'd just rather go home."
Yeah.
So I knew she was at peace.
Yeah, she was at peace with that.
Jennifer wasn't in on that conversation, so she didn't know the conversation that Morgan and I had had.
Right.
But, so it was. So I just wrapped Jennifer up and I said, look, this is not the way we're going to do this. Yeah. And we prayed right there in the front yard. And, of course, by this time, the ambulances are showing up. And Quentin and I remember Quentin and Stephanie and Miss Beth and you and the guy from across the street at Birdsong Builders came over. And, he did CPR till the ambulance got there. And when we walked out of that bedroom, we'd been taking a nap. When we walked out of that bedroom and found her laying on the living room floor, and she was already blue. She was already cold to the touch. Right. You just knew it was. Right. But I think, and I can't remember that man's name to save my life. He goes to church out there at Tumbling Shoals. I see him every time we go out there.
Yeah. I know you're talking about.
I'm so ever thankful for him to come over and know what he was doing and then do CPR till they get there.
Yes.
But he had to know too.
Yeah.
He was just doing what the Lord was prompting him to do.
Right. And I've watched you guys, both of you, just really lean into your faith. It's kind of cliche. You hear people say, well, this is where you need to lean into your faith. But I watched you guys do that. And at those times that were tough, that's when y'all really leaned on God really heavy. Yep. And he got you through.
Well, the Lord, I think the Lord puts tests in front of you.
Yes.
To test your faith.
Yeah, I do too.
And to see how you're going to react in situations.
Yeah.
And that I think not only did he stop Morgan from suffering,
right,
but that was one of those times, and your faith is tested.
That's right. Let's talk a little bit about Laney real quick because we're just about out of time. But let me do this real quick too. We're a new channel, so if you would subscribe to us and give us a like. And share this with your friends and your family and people you care about and even people you don't care about. Just make sure that everybody knows where we're at and come and watch us if you can. And I hope some of this stuff will be interesting to you because everybody out there has got someone they either know or they're related to that's been through addiction. And what we want to do is we want to present some stuff here to show you what's going on in recovery in Arkansas, what's going on with the recovery movement. So if you can, come and see us as often as you can. Subscribe, like, and share this with others. Thank you.
Amen.
Now I want to talk to you a little bit about Laney because I remember getting that call too.
Oh, yeah. That was a devastating day too. That was, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I think a little over 2 years ago now in June.
Yeah, it was summertime for sure.
I think June will be 3 years.
Yeah.
It was just before her birthday. So, I think June will be 3 years, this coming June. Anyway, so, I get a phone call. I wake up to a message from her mother, and her mother and I hadn't spoken in years, and asked me if I'd heard anything from Laney, that she had got a message from Laney's boyfriend, and he sounded real frantic, and all she could understand was something was wrong with Laney. And so I start calling, no answer, nobody knows anything, no answer, nobody knows anything. So finally I just called the Ardmore Police Department. That's where she was living. And I said, look, I'm looking for my daughter. And they said, well, I gave them her name. And they said, well, I can't tell you a whole lot about what's going on, but I will tell you she's in Oklahoma City and she has been shot.
Right.
Well, I immediately went frantic, finally got a hold of it. So I called her mother, told her what was going on, and I jumped in the car. Me and Jen jumped in the car, and we're headed to Oklahoma City.
Right.
And finally got about, I don't know where we was at along the trip to Oklahoma City. Finally got confirmation that she was alive.
Right.
So that was a blessing in itself. And when we get there, she had been shot 3 times with a 9mm in a road rage incident.
Wow.
And one of the bullets went through her collarbone area, and come up and went and and it blowed her throat out.
Right.
And she actually had died a couple of times on the table, but they got her back. So, that was pretty rough.
Yeah. She's okay today.
She's wonderful today. She's got a little bit of damage. She's got one bullet still kind of lodged in pretty close to her spinal cord. Yeah. If I'm thinking right. Yeah. Kind of got her. She kind of walks
up in her neck, and
she's got one in her neck too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, actually, they just took the one in her neck out. So,
okay.
But so she walks with a little limp. She's not 100%, but you know what? The Lord spared her life, and in that I stay on her about the Lord's got something for you.
Yeah, he ain't done yet.
You know, and she's doing really good today. She's got her a really good job. She's got a really good man in her life. She's got her kids back in her life. And,
Good.
you know, she suffered with addiction for a while too, and she came up and went through the House of Faith.
But the House of Faith with Tommy Bradshaw.
Out at Indian Lakes and graduated. And, you know, there's something that we do at Life Relaunch, and that's we have to write a letter.
Right. Right.
And let me tell you, that's tough.
I know. Don't say too much because
No, I'm not going to say too much.
Y'all might want to go to Life Relaunch, and we don't want to.
I'm not going to say too much, but that's tough.
It is tough.
What's even tougher is really doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
To your children.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely is.
At her graduation, I read a letter that I'd written her. So
right.
that's tough, man. I still got 4 more or 5 more. 3 or 4 more to write.
You got some more to write. That's right.
Yeah. So.
But again, once again, you and Jennifer leaned in to God and stood on your faith. And, and
you know, I got pretty sour at the boyfriend over that deal because it turned out that he was running his mouth to these people, and she took his bullets. Is what I always looked at it. But you know what? It don't matter.
Right.
The Lord was there. The Lord spared her life, and just move on.
Right.
You know.
You know, one of the things that you and I have talked about in the past, and I want to touch on today, is your daughter's stepdad.
Oh yeah, Jay.
I know. That's why I asked you
know,
how far you wanted to go with this.
So my 2 youngest girls, Tiana and Kalisha, out of my second marriage, they went through some pretty devastating stuff. Their stepdad molested them. And that was right before I came up here and went through the program that I found out about it. It actually happened a couple years earlier, but I found out about it. I mean, and that, you know, that may have been something that pushed me to coming up here, because I'm telling you right now, I've told every one of my kids my entire life that if anybody did anything like that to them, I'd probably go to prison for the rest of my life.
Right.
Well, when I found out about that, them being molested by their stepdad, I wanted to keep my word.
Yeah,
I'm going to go hunt him down. I'm going to kill him and
inflict some damage on him.
We're going to move on. We're going to move on with whatever happens.
Right.
And it's funny that Tiana, the oldest one of those 2, my phone's going off. I forgot to turn it off.
That's all right.
But anyway, so Tiana, the oldest one of those 2, I'd called her and I said, "Look, here's the deal.
Yeah.
I've told you y'all's whole life, you know, that if anything like this happened, then I would take care of it." And she's like, "Dad, you can't do that." She said, "If you do that, we're going to lose you."
Yeah.
And then the words that come out of her mouth after that really kicked me right in the gut. She said, and I don't know if I 100% believe that the Lord allowed that to happen to him, but coming from the words of a 16-year-old girl that 2 years prior to that, had been molested by this man, the words that came out of her mouth was, "This happened to us for a reason, because the Lord knows that we can get through this, and we will be able to help others that can't."
Right.
And
That's
it just
huge.
like, it floored me. Yeah. You know, it floored me. And I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I come in the program, and Mike and Margaret McNabb were teaching the 70 times 7.
Which is all about forgiveness.
All about forgiveness, you know, and I come to the realization that I had to forgive the man that done this to my kids.
Right.
You know, and I think I can sit here today and tell you that I've forgiven him.
Right.
But I think the Lord is one day going to make a way for me to go down and sit in front of him.
Yeah.
You know, he's in prison. He got 2 99-year sentences.
Right. Won't see the light of day.
Come to find out, this wasn't the first time that this man had done this to some kids.
Right.
So, but anyway, I just want some closure.
Yes.
And I think I'm far enough along in my walk with the Lord that I can sit down and just tell him that, look, Jesus loves you the same as he loves me.
Right.
But I want you to know how you made me feel.
Right. Yeah.
And then offer my forgiveness.
Yeah. Amen.
Yep.
Yeah. That's probably one of the hardest stories I've heard since I've been out
That's
here.
tough, man. And I feel for those. I feel for those parents and the children
Yes.
that have to deal with that kind of stuff.
You
'Cause
bet.
it's not easy.
You bet.
It's not easy.
Well, we're going to lighten it up just a little bit. Tell
Okay.
me a little bit about what you do out here.
Well, the Lord has saw fit for me to be the director out here, and like I said earlier, I started as the missions coordinator.
Right.
Kind of worked my way through the ranks, if that's what you want to say. But I said earlier also that this is not a job.
Right.
This is not a job. This is a calling on your life.
Right.
If you're trying to do this as a job, it's going to eat you up.
Yes.
It's tough even being a calling on your life.
Yeah.
But so in that being the missions coordinator, I schedule the guys to go out on the work crews and go out and work for donations and do missions work.
Yep.
I love what you always say about our mission field is just right outside our door. We ought to be able to throw a rock and hit our mission field, and we have a pretty good local mission here.
Yes, we do.
Really busy. It's really stressful. It's hard to say no.
Right. Right.
But sometimes you got to.
Well, and one of the things I think that you probably have to deal with harder than anybody out here is that there's this guy and he'll come up and he'll say, I've been thinking about something and
run. Well, no, and it's tough, but you know what? We get through it.
Yeah.
Whatever the Lord has is what the Lord has.
Yeah. And we don't always see it coming either. That's the
Right.
cool thing. He put stuff on us that we didn't plan 2 weeks ago that's the way where we were going to go or the way we were going to go, and here we are.
Right. Here we are. Yeah. How'd we get here? Yeah. Well, the Lord brought us here.
That's right.
So it's been like I said earlier, I've been on staff since January of 2020, right before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, with me being new at this, it was, that was pretty strenuous.
Yeah.
At that time, if you got a case of COVID, you were shut down. The world shut down for weeks.
Yep. And how many cases have we had that have gone through here? We get over it, and then a few weeks later, boom, somebody else.
I don't know that there's a right way to do to do the treatments and the quarantine, but we just do what we feel like is the best way. And
well, the one thing you figured out was let's get them over here and quarantine them. Mm-hmm. And what we were seeing is that the outbreak wasn't going to 12 and 15 guys. It was back down to like 2 and 3.
We've been real lucky. I want to say lucky. The Lord's really blessed us in that because we catch it pretty quick most of the time, and we get them quarantined. And having 28 guys out here, 24 guys out here at a time, it could spread pretty quickly. But we've always held it down to 6-8 guys.
Yes, we have.
So the Lord's blessed us in that, and so over the years I've been here, the Lord has pressed on you to see fit for me to take this thing by the horn.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to do. I just do the best I can with the Lord, and a lot of times Trent gets in the way, but things happen. And
well, we said if we're going to err, we're going to err on the side of love and compassion and mercy, and if that's where we mess up,
and the hardest, one of the hardest things about what we do, we have our titles. We have director, and we have whatever campus supervisor and house dads, but really we're just servants.
That's all.
We're just servants of the Lord, and anybody that does what we do knows that they just don't work any other way.
Right.
We have job titles and we have job descriptions, but really what we do is what we got to do.
Right. And you said something a while ago about your daughter. You didn't think that God made it happen, but He allowed it to happen, in the fact that He equips us. Mm-hmm. What did Dana say the other day? I can't remember how she put it, but it's like God doesn't.
He don't call the equipped; He equips the called.
That's right. He equips the ones that are called, and So
and the Lord knows He's had to be the one to equip me because I don't like to mention this word, but my patience used to be very thin.
Right. It's getting better.
Yeah, they are getting better. Used to, if you pray for patience, don't pray for patience, by the way.
Never pray for patience.
Yeah, they will. If you do that, the Lord will test them.
Right.
So,
you bet.
It's been a blessing. It's been a blessing. And whenever I first started doing this, I always thought that someday the Lord might take me back to my home area.
Right.
and do something like this. But the longer I've been here, I think the Lord's told me that this is my mission.
I think He's got you right where He wants you, at
think
least
so.
for right now.
I think
You
so.
know,
And I tell
who
people all
knows?
the time, I said, look, if the Lord's going to want me to do something different, He's going to have to physically pick me up and
Right.
transplant me, because I mean, I love what I do. You know, when the Lord delivered me from my mess, He gave me that burning desire
Right.
to help people where I'd been.
You bet.
And we do our best. We do our best to do that. So.
You and Jennifer have been a blessing to me personally in this ministry, and so I'm really glad you're here.
You know, and that's another thing too. Is her being here, us getting to do this together.
Right.
You know, knowing that it's a calling on both of our lives. That's the thing about it. You know,
Yes.
she's not here just because I'm here. I'm not here just because she's here.
Right.
She's here because the Lord called her here too. And I think it's, you know, we've had some ups and downs with the married couples
Sure.
doing this together, and
Sure.
it's just a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, it's huge.
You bet.
So
You bet. Well, do you have anything else?
I don't think so, Jay. I think I've about laid it all out on the table. You know, I mean, I hope that what I've shared will help somebody, and you know, and the main thing is going back to I'm glad you brought that up about my two youngest girls and they're being molested, because hopefully that can touch somebody that's listening and see.
Somebody needs to hear that.
Yeah,
They do.
yeah. Well, you know, and just remember to lean on your faith. You know, my wife, I'm gonna call her Jennifer. She stresses some.
Yeah.
And she just don't understand why I don't stress.
Right.
And I just look, man, what good does it do us to stress?
Right.
You know?
Right. So I'm glad you came. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your candidness about the things that have been most painful in your life, because I'm like you. I think there's some people out there that need to hear this.
Yep.
So that's all the time we have, and we thank you for coming and watching, and we hope that you'll come back again. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like us, and don't forget to share this with your friends. So thanks for watching. We love you, and we'll see you next time. Hey, and thanks for watching today. I'm glad you joined us. Hope you'll join us again. I hope some of the things that we talk about are going to be interesting to you. But I want to kind of tell you a little quick, kind of a snapshot of us. We're Recovery Arkansas and Beyond, and we're an arm of the Other Side Ministry. We're a faith-based, Christ-centered recovery center to help guys get through addiction, whatever addiction that may be, drugs, alcohol, whatever. And we just wanted to put something together that would kind of highlight some of these other guys and show them what we're doing in Arkansas. We wanted to put this thing together so you could see what we're doing out here, because there's a movement going on in the state right now where a lot of people have come together and put these facilities in similar to ours, and we're out here trying to help these guys get off this methamphetamine, get off of this fentanyl, get off of all these things that cause them so much trouble. And we wanted to put something together so that you could see what's going on and what's happening in your communities. We don't charge anybody to come out here. We felt like that Jesus paid the price, and so it doesn't cost anything for these guys to come out here, because we never wanted anyone to not come and get help because they felt like they couldn't afford it. So what we're going to ask you today, and we're not going to wear you out with this, but what we're going to ask for today is that if it's something you can do and you would like to donate to us, if you look below, you'll see a QR code, and we'll also include our email address. So one way or another, however you want to get in touch with us, that'll make it available for you to do that. And just let us know what you might want to do. There's one thing I definitely want to do on this program is I want to encourage you guys to send us emails to that email address and let us know your prayer requests and what's bothering you and the things that you may need prayer for. It may be a loved one who's struggling with addiction. It may be someone who's having some health issues. And send us those, and we have chapel out here 2 times a day, and we'll be more than glad to pray over those prayer requests. And also what I want you to do, as much as anything, I want you to send me praise reports. And those praise reports what's God done for you? Because a lot of times, we're out there praying about, Lord, I hope you'll help me with this. But a lot of times he helps us with it, and we just want to shout it from the mountaintops. So send me those prayer requests and those praise reports, and we'll try to read as many praise reports as we can every week and just kind of let you know what's going on. So again, thanks for watching. And we ask right now that if you subscribe to the channel or you hit that like button for us, or share this with your friends. That's what we really like for you to do. And let's get this out to as many people as we can get it out to. So thanks for watching. We love you, and come back and see us.